So good afternoon, everybody. Okay. I'm happy again to tell you that we are already connected to the world. Probably hundreds of our colleagues, or thousands even, in every time zone of the globe is watching us and listening to us. And now it's time for listening to Professor Alyse Shoenfeldt from the United States of America. It is my I'd like, before giving the floor to Professor Alyse, I'd like you to do the same thing we did at 10 o'clock this morning, showing that you are connected to the world. Please turn around, look at the camera up there, and say a big hello, a loud hello, hello, and wave to your colleagues all over the world. Thank you. So I was saying it's my utmost pleasure to introduce Professor Alyse Shoenfeldt as today's afternoon plenarist at this conference. Most of you already met Alyse, probably in one or two or even all these occasions. Maybe last year in Aveiro, in 2018, she was the keynote speaker. She opened our conference in Aveiro in last year. Or in the Instituto de Educação, close by, here at Cidade Universitária, where she taught for a couple of months. Or even before, in Vila Nova de Barquinha, where she spoke at the Barquinha seminar we organized in September 2017. She was so much praised by attendees last year in Aveiro that APPI immediately decided to do their best to have Alyse again. And thanks God, the American Embassy agreed to bringing Alyse again to our conference this year. Alyse has focused on a holistic education, self-esteem, and the uniqueness of the individual. She has specialized in classroom games. She's a semi-retired American language professor with over 50 years of rich, joyful experiences. She received the 2 Fulbright grants to Albania and Chile. She makes part of the Teacher Hall of Fame, Florida Foreign Language Association. Dear delegates and speakers, please welcome Alyse Shoenfeldt. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, greetings, boa tarde, good afternoon, whatever I can, to delight to see all these happy faces willing to take on a challenge today. Not only today, but tomorrow and the next, and hopefully you'll gain something out of this. I went to a wonderful speaker this morning who said that there was nothing new that we're telling you. These are things that most of you have heard before. We're just reinforcing or putting it in a different way. I know that it's about connections. And the same way I just saw Alberto, we made our connection way back in 2016. In 2016, I was in the US saying, I want to go to Portugal. I've heard Lisbon's a great place, and they were right. So I wrote my letters. I wrote to the Fulbright, I wrote to the American Embassy, and I said, I don't know, I'm semi-retired, maybe they will, maybe they won't accept me, but before I knew it, the letters came back, and here I was, the first thing showing you where I was with, oh, I wonder what this is doing here. Why is there a little white thing there? There shouldn't be that little white square on where's my tech people? We don't need any little white squares on this thing for some reason, and I have no clue how to get it out of here. So wherever the tech people are, hopefully you're going to arrive, there they are, to get rid of that box, because that's not part of me. Okay. So that in 2016 I wrote, 2017 I arrived, and then I had to say thank you once. And before that, somehow or other I'm going in reverse. You see my technological abilities are not doing what they should. I wanted to tell you, wait a second. What are we here for? We're here for communication, right? And the lady spoke this morning on assessments and interpersonal conversation. Well, what are you doing there? You're just sitting or just coming in a little late, but coming in. How about taking a minute and saying hello to the person on your right, the person on your left, the person in front, and the person behind you? Because maybe you're going to meet them again. Okay, you got that out of your system. At least maybe you'll say hello on another day. They say a smile makes a big difference wherever you are. So now it looks like I'm going in reverse again, right? But I'm going to try to go forward and letting you know I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your listening. And today's talk was supposed to be a combination, for me, of the interplay of connections and gratitude. That connections was the first thing. The title was Building Connections. But where does gratitude come into this? I know I'm thankful to be in Lisbon. I'm thankful to be at your conference, and I'm thankful to be alive, to be very honest. That it's a wonderful thing every day when we start the day and see the sun shining. And for me in Florida, that happens frequently, and I love it. So, before I actually get into the topic that I wanted to talk about, which was the interplay of gratitude and connections, I would like you to do something. You all have something to write on, even if it's the program, and I know there was spaces there. Take one piece of paper, scrap paper, a spot on that booklet, and would you draw 3 things for me? I'm not asking you to be artists. They're very, very simple. I'd like you to do a square, a triangle, and a circle. That's all you need to do for now. As the talk progresses, maybe you'll see what I'm doing with those. The square signifies something that you find of interest, that you agree with, saying, hey, right on, I agree with Dr. Shoenfeldt, she's okay. The square is one item. The second, the triangle, are supposed to have 3 points. 3 things that maybe I say today that make you remember, that you would like to remember, that were worthwhile in keeping in your own personal heart. It doesn't have to be for teaching. It might be, but it might be in your daily life. You have to remember that I've been around for a long time, over 53 years of just teaching, so you know that I'm here a long time. And I like to share my advice, and that's why I'm thrilled that you asked for me to share my pearls of wisdom. You might not agree with them, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. And the circle is when I'm finished, there might be things that you find confusing. And if so, then please jot them down, because I promise I will stay afterwards. I will be here. I'll be glad to talk to anyone about any of their opinions about what I had to say, questions, statements, joy, whatever it may be, I'm here. Likewise, I'm also here at the end of my presentation. It shows my email address, which is AlyseLS.com, at AOL.com rather. And if you want to reach me after today, I'm happy to receive any messages, any comments, anything. I know I taught at the university here last year, and I still keep getting messages. In fact, this morning I got an email from one of the students saying, oh yes, the English that I helped with, they got to use in their program when they went to Germany. It was a great trip, da-da-da-da-da. And they wanted to come to the conference today, but it's Mother's Day. And I congratulate you again, because this is a special weekend for many of you. And you've taken your time to come here instead of being home and doing all the things that mothers are supposed to do or for your mother. So thank you again. Now that I've gotten all of the paperwork out of the way, and you realize you can use this for a class, any class that you teach. This is a wonderful thing to do with your classroom. Get the students to think ahead. What is it that we're doing? What do they agree with? What don't they agree with? What points do they want to remember? I use this for many of my lectures. Well, how did I end up getting here? What am I doing here? It was around Christmas time. And the two big things that came to me, holiday cards, other than all the family ones, was this one on the left that came from Palm Beach State College, which is where I've been teaching since 1967, right through to now. Might not be full-time the way I used to because the energy level might not be there, although I still love it. And then the other greeting card on the other side came from APPI. And I thought, isn't that something, how they're so kind, so thoughtful, that they still, a year later, are sending me a greeting card. So thank you, APPI. Thank you, Palm Beach State. And Christmas time is a time we're all exhausted. We're all running around getting things ready. But that's when the invitation came, saying, would you like to come back? And I was amazed. I said, the American Embassy is sending me back? Really? Great. I'll be thrilled to be here. However, at the same time, two other things happened to me. There's a store called Costco. I don't think they have that here, do they? Okay. Costco is a huge department store, a warehouse type place, where you can get things at discount prices. And I'm a member, obviously, going there, love it. And they have a magazine, and the magazine was, and I never noticed until I was invited to speak here, that the magazine was called Costco Connection. I said, aha, a different kind of connection. And then at this particular issue, the one that came out in January 2019, said 5 steps to the best retirement ever. New life and old life. Well, I've been semi-retired. I love my position of being semi-retired because I still get to see my students. I still get to do lectures like this, and it keeps my fingers in the pie. But at the same time, you're saying, well, what's the new life? For me, the new life is talking to English teachers and traveling around the world doing this. I used to only teach foreign language. I used to teach Spanish and French. And the only reason I ever taught English is when there weren't enough foreign language classes at my university to give me a full schedule. So they said, teach a class in English. But I've gone in reverse now. Now I'm back to talking with English teachers and teaching English to foreigners. So I was thinking, is this telling me something? Retirement, Costco saying do something new, APPI's coming here. Maybe it's fate or destiny that I should be in Lisbon for this conference. But what topped it off was the following video that I want to show you, which made me think, oh, who could say no to that? There should be sound with this, tech people. The sound is not here. I'm going back. I'm going to go back to it and try again. It played up here when we did it earlier today, so let's try again. Nope. I don't know if our tech people are, I see them running to the back. And I know that when I play it on the computer and when we did it earlier, it worked. So hopefully there's something we can do now that will make them be able to see all the videos, because there are 4 videos that I have for you today, and I think each of them are relevant to what we're doing. This one being particularly relevant, I don't know what's happening up there, whether I should just continue on, go one back. And now I'm going one forward. Yay! Have you seen this before? Some yes, some no. But listen to the words.
Quero ser o teu ir e voltar.
For me,
Fazer do mundo o teu lugar.
for me,
Quero ser as asas do teu sonho de voar.
até Portugal.
E neste Natal
Traz o abraço que te prometeu, o colo de gaço junto ao beijo teu. Trago um abraço e quero teu, dentro do espaço entre o teu e o meu.
Now, who could say no to hugs and kisses? Come on. That's TAP and that's Portugal from what I know. From when I was here before, I was greeted so well, and I feel it again, and that's why I say thank you. That's the gratitude part of my thing about connections. We don't just connect, but there's more than that. So, my thank yous can be said in many ways. You can say thank you in many ways. There are pictures, there's words, there's body language to let people know that you appreciate them. You as a teacher, how often do you say thank you to those students of yours? Now, some of you are angry with them, but remember, they're thinking, what are they thinking? Are they happy to see you? You want that to be your classroom. You want joy and happiness, and you've got to find a way to get each and every one of them feeling that way. Well, how are we going to do it? Building connections. How do we build those connections? Now, at first I said, do we need to define terms of building connections? We know those words. They're not going to be lost or confused, disoriented, bewildered by the word building connections. It seems pretty clear, right? They're only 2 words. They're easy. Clarity, of course, teachers need to deal with clarity. And when you think of clarity in this form, I want to show you some signs that are not so clear. And people thought they were, otherwise they wouldn't have put up those signs. This to you is obvious. You know a stop sign, somebody's working. But the third one, if you're driving down the highway, maybe yes, maybe no to which direction you need to go. But basically, we think signs help us. Well, what about, did I read that sign right? Or did I read that sign correctly? Which way am I going? What signs are we dealing with? What about this one? You don't want to do the wrong thing in this instance, right? How about in a laundromat? It said there are automatic washing machines, but please remove all your clothes when the light goes out. Obviously, they meant inside of the washing machine. Or in a department store, there was this one in London that said bargain basement, but it was on the 2nd floor. So maybe things that we all think are clear are not so clear. Even the concept of building connections. All day long we've been talking about building connections. Are we talking about the noun, a building? There are all kinds of buildings, including the one on the right, which came from China, which I thought looked a little strange, but it's a building. Or is it the gerund, I am building, we are building? Was it just the verb to build? Am I building with Lego blocks or screws? I'm making things when I build, yeah? This is a building of a connection, a different kind of building of a connection. Okay? Whether it be handing out bottles of water or kindness or just a smile, you're building a connection. We are here to build connections with people, not things. We're not dealing with buildings, but we're dealing with people. And we forget sometimes that children are people just as you and I, with the same feelings, the same everything. And we have to make sure they feel good when they go out of that room. So, we are nurturing them. We're developing their personalities, no matter what age you're dealing with. I've taught and worked with children, my son's school in kindergarten, I've worked with adult education, and I teach college now, so that at all levels, people are the same. We all want to feel good. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be praised for what we do. Now, I took care of the word building. How about connections? Once again, look at all the different kind of connections you can have, whether it be electrical connections, telephone connections, computer connections. When you hit a ball, he's connecting with that bat to the ball. That's a connection. Or is it business connections? We are dealing again with connections. Sometimes they're bad ones. Hopefully those aren't the connections you're going to make, right? But it is a connection. It's a connection with a person. Usually we think of bridges when we deal with connections. Two land bodies are being connected by a bridge. Well, what's your connecting point to people? Is it the smile? Is it the handshake? Is it something kind that you're saying to them? That's your connection. That's how you're building connections. Are you offering them something that's going to make them grow? You're giving them information. That's an important connection for them, education. They say that education is all a matter of building bridges. Your knowledge with your students' knowledge. Bringing together things that they've had before. Nothing is brand new. We just keep adding on a little bit, and a little bit more. That all knowledge is connected to all other knowledge. But the fun, and that's what you want. You want to have fun in your class. You don't want to come home day after day going, oh, this was a rough day. There are rough days, but somewhere you've got to have the fun. The fun is in making those connections, the interpersonal things that you do with your own students. So whether we have connecting of art and science and making them realize how these could be together, or those numbers with what they're going to use in paying for something during the day, or whether you bring music and art into your classroom, there's also the connections with the parents. If you don't connect with the parents and they're going to be opposed to what you're doing, you're going to have a hard time working with that student. So we have to connect in many, many ways. Many of us, especially those who are English teachers, when you're dealing with reading, have seen this before. Okay, we have to take the text and make the student realize how it relates to them, to themselves. Then, how does that relate to other texts? Then, how does it relate to the world? And make them say, oh, this reminds me of, so that they personally get that information. I say that this doesn't work just for English or textbooks, but it's with everything that we do. How do you connect with somebody else if they don't know how you relate to them, how they relate to it? How does this affect them in the world, in their everyday life? Unfortunately, many of us put up walls. Instead of putting up those bridges to give them those connections, we're putting up walls. And in the schools, sometimes there's the bullying issue. I know in the U.S. that's a terrible problem right now. That you don't want a student to feel uncomfortable because of their peers. You have nothing to do with it, but you do. You can change that. You can change that bullying that goes on in a room. You need to bring cooperation and collaboration to your students in the room, not just to work with you, but within their own group, their own peers. You can't have administrators yelling at you, you must do this, and you have no say in it. You want to build up those connections with administration so that they understand what it is you're doing and why. I was once in a classroom that they had a big square, huge classroom, and there was no room. So they just put up these little barriers and said, okay, you're in this, the English class is here, the foreign language class is here. The other teachers hated me because my class was repeating and repeating in Spanish. I'd have them singing songs, we'd be doing things, and we made too much noise. We had to explain why my class had to be either outside or somewhere else. Because all classes are going to be in that one big room. You can't do that. You have to have some rapport with your administrators. By giving out terrible grades, that doesn't help. And I sometimes wonder if some of those are our own fault because we haven't figured out how to get to that student. How can we make them better? How can we get them to improve and want to? And then last of all, they're frustrated. If they're frustrated, that's a wall. They're scared. Either they're scared to death or they're angry. And those are the ones who we need to spend more time with. So we can't give people impossible tasks like that fellow ironing on the top of a rock of a mountain. You can't put up those walls for them. We've got to figure out ways to build those bridges. So when you stop expecting people to be perfect, you can like them for who they are and then understand what is their problem, why are they like this, how may I possibly make that change so that things will go better for me as a teacher and for them as a student. We're bombarded with connections. The other kind of connections are social media. We know that that can be overwhelming, the cell phone. It's a wonderful thing in certain respects, and it could be the devil in others. How are we going to work with that? How do we deal with those kind of connections? We need a certain amount of security on that. There's no question that with all that information that's coming, we have to guard. I mean, recently when you think of what's happened in Sri Lanka or New Zealand, in the United States this week, in North Carolina, or in Parkland, which is basically where I live, and students being shot in a classroom is unbelievable. You say, what was wrong with the person who was willing to shoot these others or willing to kill other innocent people? Why is that happening? Are they not connected to anyone, to their own mother, family, their wife, their child? Are they not? Who hasn't noticed them? And this starts as children, and we as teachers have got to notice and pay attention to why is that student failing? Why is that student miserable? What can we do? Our job is to guard and to protect. So it's a lot better to build up that child, not tear them down. Give them all the positives you can, because it's a lot easier to build up a child than it is to repair an adult. The U.S. prison system proves that. So, how do we do that? This morning they mentioned trust. The English person from their council said something about we deal with trust. We want your trust. Well, you can't have communication without trust. And your students are not going to trust you unless you're authentic. So that those making of connections, you have to be a human being. You can't. I remember when I first started teaching again, I was told, for the first 2 months, don't smile. They'll respect you. No, I can't do that. I smile all the time. If I don't smile, there's something wrong. And I figured, okay, I can't manage that way. And I'm not considered a lenient teacher either. If people look up my reports, they tell me I'm tough. But at the same time, you can be kind. So, yes, make those connections. Let them trust you. Let them know who you are. Work together and collaborate. That we're human beings, all of us, and we have innumerable possibilities. In a game of Scrabble like this, when you make connections, the connections are with people. The people make their connections with ideas. The ideas bring about issues, and maybe we can change the world. Maybe I do believe that. I still believe that. I believe that I've made a difference, and I believe each and every one of you make a difference. If you're in the field long enough, you're going to find people come back to you, and you realize what a rewarding, wonderful profession we're in. Now, the business world certainly works with connections. Many of them say that it's not even the work that they do, but it's the people and the relationships that they have with others that make their business thrive. Jeff Bezos, who certainly has all the money that he could possibly want, understands that if you do build a great experience, customers tell each other about it. And word of mouth is very powerful. You as a teacher, you'd be surprised what the students in the incoming year after you've taught for a year have to say about you and how that affects the very first day of class again. For new teachers, they've got to start somewhere. But it follows you year after year, that reputation. We don't disappear. They know who we are. When I first got my first Fulbright, I was fascinated by all the information they would send us and tell us how connecting, that all their chapters are connecting Fulbrighters and friends of the U.S. around the world, and that's their goal, trying to make people know that the U.S., who we are, that we're not just the people who shoot one another, that there are a lot of good things that come out of the States. Fulbrighters try to work with whatever they're given, wherever they're given. And likewise, when they said when they had you go somewhere, you're there to learn about the place. You're not there necessarily to teach anything, but you learn how they do things, and if you can add a little something, wonderful. So education is the job that we all are working at. How do we make life better for people? This was one of the signs I saw in Cyprus when I was sent that said, open up to excitement, open up to new experiences, and more power to you. And I think we have to keep that in mind, that the same old routine is boring for you, it's boring for your students. We've got to come up with ways. Some things are wonderful that have been done for years and years. They've proven themselves. But if you come up with a different thought, great, give it a try. So that teaching is, to me, a craft, an art. It's not an exact science. I heard the gentleman this morning speaking, saying that, hey, try, make mistakes, that's fine. That's the way things should be. That's the way you're going to learn. There's no one right way, because what's right for one person is not for the other. One student learns one way, the other one another. So you just have to give it a try. Try to use as much as you possibly can. All the learning variations that you've ever heard of will get you your final product. And that teaching is definitely, to me, a work of heart. Not just art, but heart. I love this cartoon that I saw when the doctor checked her out. And you are teachers, and you do have big hearts, and that's why you've chosen this field. Nurses and teachers have big hearts. Everybody knows that. No question about it. And the Dalai Lama said that compassion is one of the few things we can practice that will bring immediately and long-term happiness to our lives. And I talk to you not just as a teacher, but as a human being. Once again, these things make a difference. So, for those of you who are animal lovers, it's not just people. And sometimes they're lions. But whether it be the lion or the puppy dog, you've got to make that connection with your students. Either way, whoever they are. And that you've got to remember, be proud of yourself. That the profession that creates all other professions, people couldn't read, write, any of the things that they do if it weren't for you. So, as a professional, please give yourselves a round of applause. Now, I'm nowhere near finished with my talk, but I want you to know that you're appreciated, and that's why you're here today. You want to continue being that way. We come to conferences and meetings, and we have diversity of opinions. That's why you're here, to hear about all of them. There's a brief video that I'm going to put on next, which some of you might have seen before because I think it's excellent. But I really want you to watch, assuming this is the first day of class. And what is the interaction between the instructor, the students, their attention span, what they look like they're doing, what your opinion might be if that were your student coming in the door with the skateboard. Just look at them and then see what happens in just a few moments.
Good afternoon, everyone. We all have this one life to live. A fleeting shadow amongst all that exists in this vast universe. We have the ability to accomplish anything, truly anything, if we use our time wisely. Is this jar full? Yes. And is it full now?
Yes.
And how about now? Is the jar full now?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Now, I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. Golf balls are the important things, your family, your friends, your health, and your passions. The pebbles are the other important things, your car, your job, your home. And the sand is everything else, it's just the small stuff. Now, if you put the sand in the jar first, you won't have room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same is true in life. If you spend all your energy and your time on the small stuff, you won't have time for all the really important things that matter to you. Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. Take care of the golf balls first, the really important things. Set your priorities, because everything else is just sand. Yes?
Professor, what does the beer represent?
I'm glad you asked. It goes to show that no matter how full your life may seem to be, there's always room for a couple of beers with a friend.
Now, you noticed, I hope you noticed that there was definitely a rapport in that classroom by the time he got finished and made his point. And hopefully you see your students and greet them at the door and know who they are. This is the first day you might not have known them, but little by little it works. So that communication is the key connection, the key to personal and career success. That no problem in just saying hi. Relationships do matter. There have been many books written on connections, on relationships. How do we make them work? Whether they be personal relationships. You heard about the trust. You heard about the caring about another person, the concern from one to the other. That a child will not work with you unless they respect you, and vice versa. It becomes this respect is a form of love, and you will be compensated, I believe, over and over. So what I started with by just saying connections and bridges, the bridges are more than that. It's those relationships and the rapport you have with your students. As social human beings, the capacity to form and maintain connections or relationships is essential to us and how we function within society. And that's where I came back to New Zealand and Sri Lanka. If those people had good relationships, maybe those things wouldn't be happening. It's a key component to being mentally healthy and having a positive sense of well-being. So you're trying to inspire your students and motivate them to be positive, see the positive side, and you as well. We can all look at the negative. It's real easy to pick apart things. It's harder sometimes to find the positive, especially with the difficult ones. The idea of feeling good and validating them, knowing that they're acknowledged, counts for a lot. Now, this validation and acknowledgement lead to another term, this idea of abundance. You feel good. You feel like the whole world is yours when you are acknowledged and validated. And then you feel grateful, and gratitude starts coming into this picture. You see your students happy with one another, happy with you, that they are building you just as much as you building them. Because it's a reciprocal process. At one time I questioned about the collaboration and the cooperation. I thought it was all my job as the teacher to do everything. I had to make things work. You know it doesn't work that way. But some days we have good days or bad days, the same as they do. And they make the difference. There are many more of them than us. And we got to figure out how we're going to get to all work together. And we mentioned before trust, authenticity, teamwork. These are terms you know. It's nothing amazing that I'm telling you. But it's just trying to focus in and remind yourself that it's very simple. Some of these things are very simple concepts. With reference to exercise, I'm going to tell you a secret. I hated exercise. Hated it. And in today's society, you know, they talk about how important it is. And for years now, I've been hearing this. And when I was brought up, there were academics, and then there were the jocks, the guys who were the football team. They were the stupid ones who didn't do anything, but yet everybody cheered them on. And I could never understand that. There were these two groups. I didn't understand that we could all work together. As time has gone on, I realized that the exercise part is just as important. That I've been told that, and read studies on children, that when children can get up and move around, that we can't expect them to sit in their seats. That the more activity that you give them, the better off they do. It makes their brain function, their blood move. They do better when there's something going on. So we can't expect them to stay like little quiet mice sitting there nicely. They shouldn't, and you shouldn't ask them to. With exercise, as time went on, I started to appreciate it's enabled me at this age to have the energy level to be able to come here, to walk up and down the stairs, to come up that hill to get to this school, to do whatever. If I didn't do any exercise now, I couldn't be here. And my son made me very much aware of it. How? I said, well, what do you mean collaboration, cooperation? He rode his bike 600 miles this year from San Francisco to Los Angeles to help support the AIDS research. And they raised funds doing that. And he said, Mom, it wasn't just the ride. Because I kept saying, what are you doing riding? That's an awful long way. Wasn't that difficult? He says, yeah. He said, but you don't understand. It was such a positive experience, everybody getting together, feeling that they were doing some good. Knowing that we all had the same feeling and being cheered on when we rode from one town to the other. So that when he came home, instead of being exhausted, he put up that big poster to all the people who had donated and said, thank you. This was a wonderful opportunity, and you know what you're doing for others. This is such a help. The collaboration, the teamwork was amazing. And then I realized, yes, all of that, it all comes together. It's not the doing of the thing, the learning of the one item. It's feeling good when they're working together. And when you're working with committees and you're working at a conference, it's not just you. You're making others feel good when you smile, when you say this was interesting, or warn them, that one is a really dull talker, don't go to Shoenfeldt's lecture. We didn't like that one. Whatever it may be, you're helping one another. I never thought that rapport and building relationships would last such a long time. I started teaching in 1965. And the first class, now if you might not recognize me at this point because I've gone white, but that's me on the right, and that student was on the left. Now at the time, I thought the student looked older than I did. She was very mature and very grown up. And it was a class that I was given where the teacher had left after the first 2 weeks of school. Now this is my first year teaching. And I remember thinking, well, I'm being offered a job. I'm going to go no matter what. I had no idea what the problem was. When I got to the class, there were tacks on my seat. There was a snake inside of the desk. Anything that these people could do, I used to hear music, and I'd say, "Where's that music coming from?" They had a little music box that they would hide and pass it around the room so you couldn't see where it was, and all of a sudden start playing. Anything that they could do to annoy the teacher, I could see why the first teacher was frustrated and left. And I said, "I'm not leaving. This is what I've chosen to do. I'm going to figure this one out." And I realized she was one of the ringleaders of the class, and she was just as nasty as everybody else at first. But then I saw that every day she ran track. She loved running track. That was her thing. So I asked her about it, and day by day I'd ask more questions, and then I went out on the track to watch her, and then the next day I said, "Can I run with you? Give me some tips, because I'm not good at this. You know, I told you I hated exercise." But I went, and by the time I ran with her for several days, she decided I wasn't such a bad person, and she was the one who stopped all the other ones from all their nonsense. And before you knew it, I had a French class that was doing shows in front of the auditorium for the school, and the principal said, "How did it happen?" You built up a rapport. You built up a rapport, whether it be then or recently, like in Cyprus, where there's such conflict, and I was sent there to deal with teachers. How did they deal with their diverse students? We talked, and we talked about collaboration and teamwork. I never would have thought those opportunities would have been mine. When I went to Chile, when I went to Coimbra, they wanted to offer me their robes because I asked questions saying, "What is this? Does everybody wear this here in Lisbon? Is this, or are you a special person?" I didn't know when I first got here how lovely they were. Everybody has been so kind, because I think if you put out that feeling, it comes back to you. So because of teaching foreign languages, I've been able to do a great deal of international travel. And to me, always I understood this, that to learn a language is to have one more window from which to look at the world, that we're not all the same, and we learn from each other all the time. So that my love, my passion is teaching, is getting to travel, and I get to do both. And what a joy it is for me to be here, to be able to talk to you about building connections. Respect is a two-way street. I believe you have to earn people's respect by the way you behave. That these are the same things we've said: trust, belief, hope. It's a win-win situation, this idea of connections, building those connections. Whether it be student with teacher, connection of students with other students, because they have to collaborate in order for things to work for you. How about research? Nobody mentioned research this morning. If the researchers weren't here telling us which methods they find better, what new testing system that they found that we can use, these all are things that we need. We need to reach out and see what's going on in research. We can't ignore them and just say, "I'll just do my own thing." You can do your own thing once you've given yourself the opportunity to know what else is available. I mentioned administration. Your colleagues, that's why you're here at a conference. You learn from one another. You need time to talk with one another. I know we want to hear everything. There are so many good things here with over 100 different possibilities. You can't go to them all. So pick your favorites, but also give yourself time at the social time, or find out people's emails. Reach each other. You're all here in Portugal. We got social media, internet. You can reach each other to see what other schools are doing. Don't just go home with what you learned from your 10 or 15 sessions that you went to. There can be 100 possibilities out there for you today. So make your connections. Parents, you've got to deal with them. Other connections. At conferences, we've mentioned how important this is. So, you're enriching your own life by being here today. You're enriching your life personally and professionally because you are going to enjoy and learn. Now, again, where's that gratitude? Where did that come in here? What exactly is gratitude? It's not just being thankful. When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. Now, I can say that at my age. To breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. and then make that day count. I never thought of that when I first started teaching. I assumed I'd always be here, and I'd always be able to say what I want. But we realize that's not so. The more years that you pass, you realize you're fortunate. We're fortunate to have been born. And take advantage of that. Remind yourself you're in a good place. Say thank you. You could say thank you in a polite way, like, how are you today? I'm fine, thank you. That doesn't mean it. That's not gratitude. That's just saying thank you. It's that little voice inside of you that realizes that you really are thankful, that you give gratitude. So be grateful. You can teach your students, I can be grateful by letting others know that they're helping me, whether it be another student or you. That's a form of gratitude when they understand that they have to say those words. You might question, hey, what am I grateful for? Your attitude affects your gratitude. There's no question about it. You know you could have two glasses that look the same. One says they're half full and the other one they're half empty. And you know that affects every single thing they do. So a positive attitude makes that difference. How do you tell your students? How do you help them be positive? Tell them words. They're just being helpful. Oh, I'm so glad that you understood that. You told me, or you explained it to another student. That you appreciate them. I appreciate that you just handed me this pencil, that you have one ready for me today. That they're listening. You can appreciate them just for listening. That they're important to you. That their attitude is important. Make them understand that. Now, some of you can look at this and say, is this the negative or is this the positive? You look at that chart, you see the different phases of life, and some of you get to the end and you go, uh-oh, this is a really bad picture. Why is she showing us that? And I remind you, don't regret growing old, because it's a privilege denied to many. So be happy you're here, that you were able to come to this conference, and that each day is a gift that we need to be grateful for and make it be useful. Even singers like Willie Nelson started saying, when I started counting my blessings, my whole life turned around. That positive attitude made all the difference, because life's too short to wait. We have a holiday in the U.S. called Thanksgiving, and it's our favorite holiday because there's nothing that you have to do other than eat, which all of us love. And you get to see all your friends and family. Those are the people you share it with. That's the best thing ever. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for my blessings, for the people who are with me and who I get to share my life with. So in a Scrabble game, use that word grateful. And if you're thinking, what am I grateful for today? Can you think a second, what are you grateful for today? Let me show you some possibilities. If you're not sure, you can make your own grateful journal. And I know I have one that I call my thank you book, and I put in either thank you notes or items along the way. And when I have a bad day, all of us have bad days, I pull it out and sometimes remind myself of what were the things I said I was grateful for. Doesn't hurt to do that. Now, if you have nothing to be grateful for, and it can be the really simple things in life. Now remember, I put this together at Christmas time. So I want you to see this little video, which was for my Spanish class, that deals with being grateful.
I'm alive! Yeah! Yeah! Hey, Christine! You're here too! I love you!
I know. Dad, what's happening?
Honey, the power works! It goes on and off whenever we want! We've got clean water! Oh, that's great!
Oh, what do we got here, guys? Listen here. The what?
Dad, be careful!
I have a car! Did you guys see this?
Oh, you have a car!
A car!
And don't forget your coffee.
Really fast.
So that was a reminder of some of the simple things we can be grateful for. That it's a gift that we give ourselves to remind ourselves to be grateful. And then there's that abundance again that comes out. When you're grateful, you feel like things are wonderful. You might even decide to be a volunteer. If you got enough abundance and happiness and extra time, that could happen. And that's why people from APPI here today who have set up everything, whether you realize how much work it entailed for them to have so many speakers and have everything running so smoothly, your program, etc. You've got to give them a lot of credit. So I thank them. I want you to evaluate and think about, reflect upon what I've said today. It's nothing new, nothing amazing that I've said. I appreciate the fact that you've allowed me to talk, to give you my feelings of joy, what it is that I think's been important over these 53 years. And I'm going to leave you with just the idea of live life, laugh lots, love forever, and never stop learning, because that's why you're here at a conference. If you have any of these when I talked to you from the beginning, hopefully I said a few things that you agree with, some points that you'd like to remember. If there are any questions, I have exactly 1 minute left, so I guess I can't answer them yet. I'm looking at my time over there, but I told you I'd stay here afterwards. I also told you I would respond to any kind of email you send me. I love getting mail from people around the world. It's my joy to respond. So you know how to reach me. And I'm saying my thank yous, number 1, to APPI for having asked me again. Number 2, the American Embassy. And number 3, for being such a great audience. Thank you.